Amen.
This weekend has a couple of commemorations that go on. Some of them less important, like minor saints and hymn writers, but one large saint who sort of looms large in the corners of Christianity wherever you may roam, whether you know so or not. And that one saint is none other than Saint Benedict of Nursia. His official feast day was yesterday. And one of his famous quotes is up on the screen in front of you: "Prefer nothing, absolutely nothing, to the love of Christ." Okay, so all of you know exactly who Saint Benedict is, correct? What do you mean, no? He is one of the most important saints that Christianity has produced. He died in like the 5th century, so his stuff has been around for like 1,500 years. You know what he did? Okay. Have any of you ever heard of a monastery or a convent? You know what that is? What lives in a monastery and a convent? I'm going to start very simple here. Holy people. All right, fine. The people that live in monastery and convents would probably argue with you whether they are holy people. But we'll get there, and that's a good reason why. What are they doing? Making?
No, fruitcake.
Fruitcake.
They're petitioning to God on our behalf.
Okay, that's the first. You know, yes, and this is very interesting. I like your answers, good people. I have my own peanut gallery, I guess. But yes, they do most of those. They do all of those. And he is the reason for that, by the way. They are to be busy. Their hands are busy. Their spirits are busy. Their prayers ascend on behalf of the church at all times. They're supposed to be sort of repositories of the faith, even when the faith has managed to, how should I put this, disappear. It did that once. You know, somebody in the Dark Ages, the only people that still knew how to read a Bible or hadn't had one were monks. They gave it back, don't worry. They're also supposed to be busy with work. But it's all clearly and carefully regulated. You don't work when it's not time to work. You only do the hours when work is assigned to you. The rest of the time, you pray. You eat when it's time to eat. You don't chit-chat. You eat. And then you go back to work. Or to prayer, whichever the schedule says next. It's a very regulated life. It's a life that's supposed to give actually freedom to those who are in it. If you think about it, if you live under a certain sense of rule, a certain sense of mission, you pretty much know what you're going to do next, right? And we all have those things. We call them habits, right? Sometimes they're bad habits. We get up at 6 o'clock, and by 6:15 we have our first Jack Daniels. People have rules of their own. They're not always blessed rules. You know, some people live under rule for the good of their own spirits and the spirits around them. What I always found interesting about this character was that, you know, he figured that monks inside the walls of their monasteries seemed to be pretty safe. It's supposed to be a pretty safe place. Done it. This guy almost got poisoned 3 or 4 times or killed by people.
Why? Inside or out?
Both. Both. Some of his monks thought he was too strict. They tried to poison him. Some of those outside the monastery thought he was an interruption of their daily life. It distracted his holiness and his monks' holiness distracted from their daily life. It was an interference in daily life, so they tried to, from without, come and assassinate him. You wouldn't think that a monk would have to worry about that, but such is the world. A takeaway something that maybe to remember from St. Benedict, these 10 or 12 simple sentences. They're called the path to humility. I like those. I like the third one from the bottom. Probably for all of us in daily life, the hardest, yet somebody's smiling over there, the hardest to obey. Walk away from idle and inconsequential talk. These are the simple rules that to conduct oneself with. Revere simple things in life. Curb your personal desires. Listen to others. Okay, how many of you have listened to somebody else recently? Really? Have you?
My brother.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, listening is one of the... Did you realize that listening in many languages, Latin and Greek and all these kind of things, I know exception, that listening and obeying and doing are from the same root of the word. We have two separate ones. Maybe that's why we have a different thought here. But to listen to somebody else is this action of ultimately entering their world and hoping with them great things. Endure always. Have the courage to confess that you are weak. Practice being content. How many of you have recently practiced being content? We were joking this morning here, when you know that you have a problem when you go to a yard sale that you've donated items to and you end up coming home having bought back some of your own items inadvertently. Then you know you've got an issue. Maybe stuff has piled to the point where contentment is no longer yours, and you think it might be at that time, but it's not. Learn to somehow be just a tad critical of yourself. Live by a rule that's shared by a community. Because, frankly, you need community. You need people around you. It's easy to get picked off being a hermit out in the desert. Matter of fact, even in the Bible, where does the devil show up to tempt Jesus? In the desert. Where did the desert monks go? Well, into the desert, because they knew they would there fight the evil one, but they didn't go until they had lived in community for a while. Understand that silence is sometimes the best thing. Anyone here know how to keep your mouth shut? I don't, because that's why I'm a pastor, see? If I kept my mouth shut, this would be a boring hour. But, no, actually it might be, I don't know, maybe it's improved. I don't know, you can tell me later. But, but it's important sometimes to be able to not speak. Especially in this day and time. Right now, everybody thinks they have to talk and add something. And given that you can type it into a computer quickly and have it broadcast over 100,000 times in various places, makes it ever too easy not to keep your mouth shut. Learn how to sometimes be quiet. Walk away from inconsequential things and inconsequential talk. It's called gossip, by the way. Hard one, and I know it. Be simple in speech. Be humble in how you carry yourself. The steps to humility, courtesy of St. Benedict. And the interesting part about them being that there's things that everyone can aspire to, even in lives that we live in day-to-day living. This you can do. There's some things that maybe in a Benedictine rule you have a hard time with, like for instance going off every 3 hours, yes I mean that, every 3 hours to prayer for at least 45 minutes. That's a little tough. Or getting up at 3 in the morning to read the Bible and ponder it for an hour. Gets to be kind of tough. We don't do that in daily living. This, brothers and sisters, is a possibility. One thing that we also inherited from the monasteries around is that it is important sometimes for Christians to live in constancy, if you understand that word, in stability. Even if around you, like in the Dark Ages, the world is going nuts. Even if, like in the Dark Ages, there is tyrants who would like to behead prophets. This, by the way, is an icon called historical spirit. It's the angel holding the head of John the Baptist as an admonition to all to always be vigilant and take a deep look into the story of St. John the Baptist, because somewhere in this deep darkness of that story, there should be something that reminds us of our own life. John the Baptist was not beheaded for a crime of his own. John the Baptist was beheaded by a king who saw it expedient to go do so. It was just the way that the man was. King Herod was not a friendly human being. The Romans quipped that it was easier or safer to be a pig in a stable than it was to be a son in his own palace. And John the Baptist, whom Herod actually understood to be a prophet, but whom he was trying to control, he's trying to shut him up. That's why he was in a dungeon in the first place. Yeah, I like that John the Baptist is a prophet, but I'm going to make sure nobody listens to it other than me. And I'm going to only listen to it when I choose to. The difference between having him jailed and having him murdered isn't all that much different, which is why he, with a shrug of his shoulder and a moment of regret, allows John to be then executed. Only then, as we hear in the story, to hear that, well, maybe he got raised from the dead. Maybe he isn't as dead as I was hoping he would be. In other words, he had taken John's head off, but somehow now John was living in his head. Because when he heard what Jesus and his disciples were doing all through Galilee, he was reminded of it again. This was a man of God. Spirit stir within me. May it not be that he was right. May I not have to listen. May I not have to obey. And so are all of us. Within us does still stir the spirit that occasionally accuses us because it must. But about us and around us is still this invitation from Jesus. Now come to me. All you who are weary, come to me, all who are feeling weighed. Come to me, all who are sure of your guilt, who are weighed down by your burdens. Come to me. I will give you rest. I will give you the forgiveness of sins. And as he says to the apostles, come away. Come away. The world is a place full of Herod. And at the end of it, there will be a come away to the banquet of the 5,000 in the desert. I will set a banquet where people don't get beheaded. I'll set a banquet where you shall be saved. And yes, we live in a world that has the Herods in it. We live in a world where we are capable of being Herod. We live in a world that is under the grace of Jesus Christ. And so is each and every one of you. Come to the water. Come to the feast. Meet Jesus again. Let him work the remission of all your sins. Whatever you do, love him, and do not silence him within or without, for that is being a Christian. Amen. We give you thanks.